Hi, this is Jerry McLaughlin, co-author of the book Cold Wax Medium, Techniques, Concepts, and Conversations, and co-producer of Cold Wax Medium, a video workshop. Welcome to Ask Jerry and Rebecca, a video series answering all your questions about cold wax medium. This is Jerry McLaughlin with today's episode of Ask Jerry and Rebecca. And today's question comes from artist Jenny Herzog, who is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And her question is, what is the most effective way to speed the drying process when using cold wax and oils? And she goes on to add some comments that are very astute because Jenny is a very experienced artist. And what she says is, I sometimes add marble dust or a couple of drops of Galkid to the paint mixture and always have the drying paints in front of fans. Is there anything else I can do? Well, Jenny really answers her own questions, and I think that I only have one more thing to offer, but I do want to go through her answers in detail to help those of you who aren't familiar with ways of speeding up the drying of cold wax and oils. So, first of all, a lot of people choose cold wax and oils because the mixture has this kind of sweet spot for drying. It's much faster than traditional oil paints, but slower than acrylic, so that you're actually able to work on them for a longer period of time and do things that you couldn't do with traditional oils or with acrylics. But there are some times when you're going to want things to hurry up a bit, where you're in a rush or you have a deadline or you just want to move forward with your painting. So there are some specific things that we can offer you. First of all is that you can up the ratio of cold wax to oils. Now, normally we recommend a ratio of about 50-50 or 1-to-1. That doesn't mean every artist uses this ratio. So if you use less wax than that, then you can push your wax ratio up a little bit, and that's going to give you a faster drying time. You can push a little beyond the 50-50 ratio, and that might speed up the drying a bit more, but you are going to reach an asymptote where adding more cold wax just doesn't speed the drying any further. So that limits what you can do with that a little bit. Now, the second thing you can do is to add a little bit of marble dust. Now, typically people think about marble dust as something that adds body to the cold wax and actually increases the viscosity. But adding just a little bit of it does speed up the drying, and you don't have to add enough that it changes the thickness or the viscosity. It's just that chemically putting a little bit of that calcium carbonate in there does speed along the drying process for you. The next thing that you can do that she mentions is to add a little bit of something like Galkid or Galkid Light or Liquin. And these are all oil painting mediums that you add to traditional oils to change the viscosity, speed up the drying time, and to also change the sheen when the surface finally dries. And those additives do exactly the same thing for mixtures of cold wax and oils. So Galkid, Galkid Light, Liquin, and those kinds of things, just a little bit of those added to your cold wax and oil mixture will speed up the drying. They also have the effect of very frequently adding just a little bit of subtle sheen to your drying surface. So if you're really going for a very matte surface, you may not want to add these to your mixture, especially in those final layers. Another thing that Jenny mentioned she does is to use a fan, and that works really, really well. And I do this in my studio all the time. So I just take a typical box fan or something that you would use in the summertime to help you cool off, and put those on my paintings and let that run overnight. And even if you just do it while you're in the studio, you'd be surprised at how quickly it moves things along. And it does that because it helps evaporate the solvent. But the other thing it does is to bring fresh oxygen to the oil paint and wax mixture, which is how those combination of products actually dries. They don't really dry, they cure through oxidation, and bringing extra oxygen to them actually does speed up the process a fair amount. Another aspect of that you can control a little bit is the temperature of your room. So when I first started painting, I painted in my garage, and in the wintertime, it could be in the 50s in there, and my paintings would dry very slowly, even when I had a fan on them. And that's just because most chemical reactions slow down, and evaporation of solvent slows down when the temperatures are cool. So if you make sure that the environment that you're painting in is room temperature or higher, then things will go quite a bit faster. Now, I do have to add a caveat to that, and that is that mixtures of oil and cold wax are quite sensitive to heat, even more so than encaustic surfaces. When you combine oil and cold wax together, it becomes a little bit softer and a little runnier, and even a little bit of heat can turn that to liquid. If you've ever painted in a place where it's like 90 or 95 degrees, you'll notice that that mixture of oil and cold wax is fairly runny. So you don't want to do anything like turn an electric heater on your painting or place your paintings in the sun to dry faster. You're going to end up melting your mixtures of cold wax and oils and ending up with just a puddle on your painting surface. And I've absolutely seen it happen in more than one workshop. Somebody slides their painting into a sunny spot and it just turns into a puddle of wax and oils. So definitely don't do that. And then there's one thing that Jenny didn't mention that I do want to bring up, and that's adding an oil dryer, or what some people might refer to as a siccative, Siccative. And that's a chemical that you add to your mixture of oil and cold wax that contains typically something like cobalt or manganese or iron, sometimes zinc. And those chemicals promote the oxidation of the oils and wax. You can buy those at art supply stores. So all of those are ways to speed up your oil and cold wax drying if that's something that you want to do. So Jenny, thank you for your question. I hope that answers it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.